Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Wednesday, February 22nd. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Indiana game is in 192 days. The game against Michigan in 276 days. This is the, fourth year I've been doing this morning show. So you start to get a rhythm, and this is, during this time of year, we start talking about this kind of stuff. And mid to late February, well, that's the start of camp season. We get camp season in the June at Ohio State, but there's camps kind of going on all around the Midwest and across the country right now and heading into the spring. It is a very, very important time in terms of evaluating guys, in terms of getting to see guys who are kind of the next generation of college football players. And camp season kicked off this week with the Best of the Midwest Combine in Indianapolis. Mark Givler and Kevin Noon were both there for Buckeye Huddle to get a up-close look at some of the future names to know in the Midwest. Kevin joins me now. And Kevin, I guess let's start with, for people who have not been to one of these camps, when you're at the Best of the Midwest camp, what are you looking at? What are the guys doing and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's several hundred players in a space that's probably a little too small to be trying to accomplish everything, but you're going through a lot of testing in terms of broad jump and 40 and some other cone drills and things of that nature. And then they go through some positional workouts. And then, of course, what everybody's there for are one-on-ones. And through the years, I think this event's been going on for 14 years. I'm pretty sure I've been to at least 12 of them. You'll sometimes have guys who just show up and who want to go through one-on-ones, but I think all of it is very important. Is it laser time? No, but I think most times we see a 40 on a guy, it's hand-timed, and I guess it just really matters how quick somebody's reflexes are with the stopwatch, or worse yet, if you're trying to use a phone, which is by far the worst way of doing this. I know nobody's running a 3.9 out there, but it's a good opportunity for a lot of guys to get out there in a time that's not necessarily football-centric for high school football players. Most of these guys are multi-sport athletes, are playing basketball or wrestling or things of that nature. So, we're not going to necessarily see guys completely in their football shape, but it is a great chance because talent shows itself. And, there were some pretty talented guys at this event, and a lot of names that we'll probably need to know down the line. And truthfully speaking, with several hundred guys there and just Mark and myself, I'm sure there were probably a couple guys that we'll hear about down the line. It's like, yeah, I think I saw him, but I'm not so sure at this event.
Yeah, these camps, whether it's at Ohio State over the summer or one of these camps, you always kind of got to prioritize. You sort of go in with a little bit of a list of guys you're looking for and making sure you see them, and then you can sort of find, wander around and see some other guys, and sometimes someone will jump out to you. But yeah, there are a lot of players there. It is also a good reminder of how few people can actually play at the Ohio State level. It is a good, sort of reminder. You see those stats all the time about, X number of people play high school football, and then only a tiny percentage of them play college football, and that includes lower level FBS, FCS, Division II, Division III. The Ohio State caliber players are the tiny fraction of the tiny fraction of the tiny fraction of high school football players. So we're going to be talking about three guys that are sort of note out of that crew. There were obviously others that you can read more about at BuckeyeHuddle.com, but I wanted to focus on three guys today. The first of them is Bryce West. He's a 2024 cornerback out of Glenville. He's someone that came with the Glenville group to the Ohio State camp last June, and even with the 2023s kind of being the main focus, as a 2024, he was already someone who was getting a lot of attention. So what did you get to see out of Bryce West when you got to scout him in person?
Yeah, I really like Bryce West. I think he's a top 2 corner in the state of Ohio. Him and Aaron Scott out of Springfield. Part of that Glenville crew, and Ted Sr. brings a busload of players to this event, and it's an opportunity for a lot of guys to get a lot of eyes on them from people in the recruiting industry and have stories written. But Bryce West doesn't necessarily need any of those stories. He's got a ton of offers. I pretty much can kind of pick wherever he would want to go at this point. 5'11", 180 type of guy. It can be a little handsy sometimes in these types of events, but I kind of got into it with some people on social because they watched one clip in a vacuum of him being a little handsy. I'm like, this isn't Friday ball or Saturday ball or Sunday ball. This is camp and combine season. They're out there in shorts and t-shirts, and we're not exactly dealing with the most ideal circumstances. But I think Bryce West has got tremendous ball skills out there. I mean, he certainly does not lack confidence on the field. I think that anybody that lands him, and I think Ohio State has an excellent chance of landing him, is going to be very happy with what he can bring. I mean, remember, this is the same program that produced players like Marshawn Lattimore. So he is somebody that has the physical tools. I mean, there's going to be things that are going to have to be cleaned up, but I don't care who's coaching you. The leap from high school football to college football is always going to require some sort of tweaks and fine-tuning, and that doesn't necessarily diminish this high four-star ranking that Bryce West has with most of the recruiting services. I mean, this is a player that could be a 5-star by the end of it all.
You mentioned there that you feel like Ohio State has a pretty decent chance with him, and the Glenville High School after his name is usually a pretty good indication that Ohio State's going to have a pretty decent chance. You also mentioned Aaron Scott there. I mean, 2 in-state corners who are high-level corners. In the era of NIL, where Ohio State is shifting its focus a little more locally and regionally, boy, that feels like that could be a really, really crucial pair of players for Ohio State to bring in to really, if you have 2 high-level corners, in-state prospects right now that you can bring in one class, that feels like an incredible luxury right now at a time when there's more uncertainty than ever with NIL going on and all of the other factors that are going into recruiting right now. That feels like that's just going to be an incredible luxury if they can bring in 2 guys in-state at that level.
Yeah, absolutely, to have those guys there, and that doesn't mean that's going to keep the Southern schools or Michigan or anybody from coming out there and trying to recruit them, and they're going to do everything that they can. So it is nice having guys, because if you have players that grew up watching Ohio State, grew up being fans of Ohio State, there's something to that. If you have a guy that is 2 hours away for Glenville or an hour away for Springfield, it's a lot easier to hold on to those types of players versus the guy who might be 14 hours away by car in South Florida and everything else that's going on. Now, Ohio State does not necessarily have another school that it is recruiting against for the top end kids within the state of Ohio. Sorry, Cincinnati. That's just reality. So it is a tremendous luxury, but also a lot of pressure, because if you mess up on one of them, you're going to hear about it a lot, because both these guys are supposed to be slam dunks. I wouldn't say anything in recruiting is ever truly a slam dunk, but I feel Ohio State certainly is the team to beat on both.
Yeah, that feels like there are no sure things virtually anywhere in recruiting right now, but anything that you can get that's a little bit of an advantage for you, having someone, in state and someone who is close to home, that is obviously a big advantage for Ohio State moving forward. So that is Bryce West and also Aaron Scott in the corner room. You only saw Bryce West. But someone else you also saw, DaMarion Witten, 2024. He's listed as an athlete. Some people have him as a tight end. Like, what did you see out of DaMarion Witten? Because he feels like he's someone who kind of a unique blend of size and skill.
Yeah, I mean, people sit there, they kind of talk about him being this jumbo athlete, and I think that's pretty fair, because don't get pigeonholed into, well, you're kind of a bigger guy, so, I mean, are you a tight end? No, that doesn't always necessarily the case. I mean, I think he is a big receiver. Now, of course, the question is the way that Brian Hartline and Ohio State recruits at receiver, what does that mean there? Because are you going to not bring in a Mylan Graham or somebody like that because you got to bring in DaMarion Witten? Well, he's certainly a different type of player. I mean, and that doesn't mean that he's like 6'5" or anything like that. I mean, he's not. He's 6'3", 230 something, but he is a talent out there. I mean, he's somebody that you bring in and then you figure out what to do with later. And I know that we've seen some of those types of plays through the year of, well, we're not exactly sure what he is, but we'll figure it out, and it hasn't necessarily worked out. But he's going to be the type of big body that I think is very easy to figure out. This isn't going to be bringing Noah Brown in and then taking him up to 244 pounds and realizing, whoops, too big. DaMarion Witten is a true talent and somebody else that I think will continue the Glenville to Ohio State pipeline.
All right, and the last guy, someone who is definitely listed at tight end, that is Willie Rodriguez. He is a 2024 as well. These are all guys who are part of the upcoming cycle, just in case you're not familiar with the way we delineate recruiting classes. This is based on the February signing day. So even though these guys would potentially be signing the early signing date, December 2023, they're all considered 2024 recruits. So this is sort of next class up. So tell us a little bit about Willie Rodriguez.
Yeah, I mean, he's somebody who already has 14 offers at this point. He has some Power 5. He's got Big Ten. He's got ACC, I believe. So he's not somebody who's completely new to the game, but, he doesn't have necessarily those top offers yet, and I think they're coming. Ohio State is starting to show more interest here. He's got the camp invite. I think that we're going to start seeing more contact between him and new tight ends coach Keenan Bailey. He goes to Covington Catholic, the same school that produced Notre Dame tight end Michael Mayer. I think if Notre Dame gets involved, they might be tough to beat. UK hasn't offered yet. I mean, honestly, he's closer to Cincinnati than he is to Lexington, but UK might be a team that you have to keep an eye on as well. But he said that even though he had a cousin who played at UK, he never really had a favorite team growing up. But another kid at 6'4", 232 right now, he's a heavyweight wrestler. So he's wrestling guys up to 285 pounds, and he's number 3 in the state in the heavyweight weight classification. So somebody who can do a lot of things, tremendous hands. He caught pretty much everything thrown at him. He just looked really good, really fluid out there. I think that he's a player that you have to keep an eye on, especially as Ohio State has not identified really where it wants to go in 24 with tight ends. Do you take 2 tight ends? We'll have to see what a lot of things look like coming out of spring practice. If the numbers get thin via portal there, does that really make it a situation of where you got to take 2? But I think that with Willie Rodriguez, he's somebody that you need to keep an eye on because he's pretty darn good.
Yeah, it feels like we've been talking for years and years about, is this the year Ohio State takes 2 tight ends? And it never seems to be, but you never know. Maybe this is the year Ohio State takes 2 tight ends. And if you want to find out if this is the year that Ohio State takes 2 tight ends and a whole bunch of other stuff about recruiting, the best place to find that stuff is at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Mark and Kevin we're on the road for that Best of the Midwest Combine. I have this strong suspicion that will not be the last camp they go to scout these players. This is where the recruiting business is actually done. You go on the road, you meet these guys, you make the contacts, and then you have the inside information later. This is how the sausage gets made in the recruiting business. This is why these guys are on the road, putting in the work, putting in the effort, making those contacts, and then why they can provide you all of that great insight and analysis when we're a little closer to signing day, and you are really, really, really interested in knowing where these guys are going, what these guys are thinking, all that. Well, you can find it at BuckeyeHuddle.com because of all the groundwork that's being laid right now. So make sure you sign up today to become a member and get access to all of that great coverage of recruiting, all of that great coverage of the team, all of that great X's and O's and scheme coverage that you get from our team of football insiders, all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.